Sorry, it just slipped out. It's become a reflex, you know? Something I catch myself muttering even half asleep. The word echoes in the quiet of my own mind. That particular command, that urgent, desperate warning, has carved itself so deep into my thoughts that I hear it in the dead of night. Constant low hum of terror under the surface of my consciousness. My name, who I am, there's less right now than the big picture. It doesn't matter. Really, it doesn't. The specific details of my identity, my past, have been completely eclipsed by something much more immediate and pressing. What matters, what you need to understand right now, is this chilling fact. There's a nurse at your door, wearing a powder blue uniform that looks decades out of time. An old-fashioned cap sitting neat on her head. And she's standing right outside your apartment. She's not just passing by. She's holding something. An official-looking clipboard gripped in one hand. The white paper on it stark against the dim hallway. And here's the nightmare that should send a cold shiver down your spine. Your name, your very own name, somehow, inexplicably, is at the very top of her list. It was put there with terrifying precision, an invisible hand sliding it up to the freezing heights. And why has this sudden, terrifying development happened? Because you clicked on this video. That single, seemingly harmless action, that moment of curiosity or idle distraction, set the process in motion. So, and I cannot stress this enough, Procedure 11C has officially, undeniably begun. 3 years ago, my life was, to put it mildly, a mess. I was a poor freelance video editor, scraping a living in the relentless heat of Phoenix, Arizona. Rent was always a problem, and my diet mostly consisted of instant noodles and cheap coffee. Each day was routine, the constant searching for any editing gig I could find online, no matter how small or tedious. I sat for hours on forums, hunting rare job boards, desperately trying to find something to keep the lights on for another month. My workstation was a cheap laptop that was always on the verge of overheating, its fans whining with an irritating drone. A desert sun, bright and merciless, seemed to mock my inner life lived on screens. Then, late one night, when the only sound was my AC's hum, something hit my inbox. It was an email unlike any I'd ever gotten. No sender name, no company letterhead, nothing to indicate who was behind it. Just a disposable address you could tell was untraceable, made for anonymity. But the subject grabbed me. Urgent edit. $10,000. No questions. $10,000 for a freelance editor like me? It was an unimaginable sum. A lifeline. The email had a single link. Deceptively simple. I clicked it, my heart already pounding with a mix of suspicion and desperate hope. It opened 47 minutes of raw, unedited security footage from a hospital. The attached instruction was terse, almost cruelly blunt. Cut to 3 minutes. Make it look fake. You have 48 hours. Everything inside me screamed. Every instinct, every spark of common sense told me to delete, to pretend I'd never seen it, to run away from whatever this was. It felt wrong, deep, fundamentally wrong. But the lure of $10,000, the pure financial desperation, was a powerful motivator, a siren whispering promises of stability. I didn't delete it. I hit play. And that single, terrible choice, surrendering to greed and curiosity, became a colossal mistake, could completely ruin my life. The only reason I'm even trying to tell this awful story, anyone who'll listen, is that the person who hired me, the anonymous client, is dead. I found out he died only 3 days ago. It was a shock, sudden and cruel, and it hit me with a fresh wave of panic. But before he died, in what must have been his last moments, he sent me one last message. It was short, cryptic, and utterly terrifying. The words burned into my memory. They found the original. It's spreading. The message felt frantic, a last warning, passing the torch of horror. It was a fevered whisper, confirming that what we thought we'd buried, the secret we thought safe, had resurfaced. And spreading worried me the most, suggesting something far more sinister than a restored file. It implied an active, malicious entity that wanted to infect, consume, reproduce. I quickly discovered the footage came from a place called St. Dymphna Medical Center in the abandoned stretch of Gary, Indiana. By the time I watched the video, the hospital was long closed, a ghost of its former self. Officially, it had shut in 2008, a year before the footage's timestamp. Everything was boarded up. Windows, empty eyes staring out. All power supposedly cut. It was left to rot, a monument to a forgotten past. The timestamp burned into the tape red with chilling precision. July 14th, 2007, 2:17 a.m. I watched the first 10 minutes with my fingers hovering over the scrub button, wondering if I was wasting my time. For a long stretch, nothing happened. Just empty, cavernous corridors, lit by some weak battery emergency lights, throwing long, skittering shadows. Broken equipment lay scattered like silent witnesses, all very typical for a spooky, abandoned hospital. the standard setting you expect. Then, without warning, the camera in Wing 3B abruptly flicked on. The screen shimmered and settled into a new, bone-cold view. That's when she came into frame. A nurse. Her uniform was a pale, almost ethereal powder blue. The cap old-fashioned. Her whole look streamed 1970s, anachronistic and grotesque in digital footage. She pushed a gurney. The wheels made no sound on the dusty floor. Under the spotless white sheet covering it, there was clearly something, someone, a disturbing mound of hidden form. She moved slowly, deliberately, almost gracefully, passing under the camera's unblinking eye. Then, sensing the camera, sensing someone watching, she slowly, deliberately looked up. Her gaze, horribly calm, was fixed on the lens. That moment sent chills down my arms. She knew. Somehow she knew. Her lips parted, and she mouthed something. A silent message, directed straight at me, or whoever else might be watching. Later, I zoomed in, pixel by painful pixel, trying to make out the silent words. The quality was poor, but I'm almost certain, with a certainty that still haunts me. Vishy mouth. He's awake. The nurse rolled the gurney, the sheet still hiding whatever lay beneath, into room 314. The camera angle cut abruptly, disorienting. And now I had a new view from inside the room. 3 figures in old surgical scrubs stood there, masks down, faces indistinct. Machines I couldn't identify hummed quietly, their dials glowing with implacable power. And monitors gave off rhythmic, almost soothing beeps. None of this made sense. My mind spun, trying to reconcile it with what I knew. This hospital was supposed to be abandoned, boarded up. Records said the electricity had been off for years. How were these machines even working? How could there be such activity? This scene was a deep, terrifying paradox. Then, in coordinated, clinical motion, the 3 doctors leaned down and pulled the sheet away. What lay beneath was not human in any recognizable sense. It was a deer, a full-grown, majestic stag. Its antlers were still impressive and branched, grotesque in that setting. I held my breath, but the horror didn't stop there. Its chest rose and fell with slow, deliberate breaths. It was breathing, and its eyes, God, its eyes. They were undeniably, unmistakably human. I know how insane that sounds, how impossible it seems when I say it, but I swear to you, everything I am, those were human eyes looking out from that creature. They were terrified human eyes, wide with an unbearable, eloquent terror, pleading, full of despair, beyond animal fear. It was a soul trapped inside an animal, silently screaming. One of the doctors, voice unnervingly calm and flat, lifted a clipboard that seemed to appear in his hand and said simply, "Prepare for procedure 11C." I hit pause, hands shaking. A feverish desire to find a rational explanation flooded me. I started searching online for procedure 11C across every search engine I could think of. I scoured medical databases, academic journals, archives, anything that might shed light.
Nothing.
There were no medical references, no archival mentions. It was as if it didn't exist. Until, by chance, I found a single old forum post from 2004, buried deep in the web. Short, anonymous, terrifyingly blunt. If you see 11C on your chart, run.
It's not an
Operation. Those words hit like a physical punch, confirming the dread I'd been feeling. At that moment, I tried to back away in earnest. I couldn't continue working on some sick, perverted project. I emailed the client, politely saying I was done and couldn't finish. I thought that would be the end. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. An immediate reply, almost prophetic, as if he'd anticipated my exact response. 2 sentences. Watch to minute 32. We'll pay you $20,000. $20,000. The number was staggering. A fortune to a struggling freelancer. The temptation, coupled with creeping terror about what might happen if I disobeyed, was overwhelming. So, against every fiber of my being, I kept watching. I can say now, with absolute certainty, it was the biggest mistake of my life. I scrubbed forward past empty halls until the playhead hit the 32-minute mark. A deeper layer of horror unfolded. The doctor strapped the deer, still trembling, to an operating table. Its powerful legs, built for leaping through forests, were bound and helpless. Then they rolled in an old, bulky TV, a relic of a previous decade. When it powered up, the screen flooded with familiar, chaotic static, a whirl of white noise. Then, the deer started to cry. Not an animal sound, not a frightened bleat, but real, unmistakable human tears rolling down its furry face. Squinting at the harsh operating room lights, my eyes burned with sympathy. The nurse, same unnerving calmness, leaned close to the deer's head and in a low, chilling whisper said, "It's okay, Mr. Henderson. This is the part where you forget. Mr. Henderson. The name struck me like lightning. I grabbed a pen and scribbled the name on a random receipt to make sure I didn't forget. The static on the old TV began to resolve, slow and horrible. It unfolded into an image, not just noise resolving. The corridor. The same corridor, with the same flickering lights and floor stains from the earlier surveillance footage. And through it, pushing the familiar gurney, walked the nurse. The exact same nurse. The exact same gurney. The exact same scene. It was a perfect, nightmarish echo. In that moment, gut sick with dread, I finally understood the true, unspeakable nature of what I'd been watching. They weren't treating the creature. They weren't even experimenting in any conventional sense. They were forcing it to water its own transformation, its own endless, torturous loop of re-experiencing. It was a psychological prison, an embodied nightmare, replayed over and over, not to heal, but to re-traumatize. I wanted to call the police, to report this atrocity, to get someone to stop these perverse experiments.
That a cold rationality cut through me.
What would I say? How could I explain it to a sane person, let alone law enforcement?
Hi.
I have footage of an abandoned hospital running an experiment where they trap a man in a deer's body and force him to watch his transformation. The words sounded insane in my head. No one would believe me. They'd think I was crazy. Worse, complicit. The absurdity trapped me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't act. I was burdened with a secret that made me helpless. So instead, I forced myself to finish the edit. My job, after all, was to make it look fake. To bury the truth under a mountain of cheap theatrics. I deliberately added all the campy horror effects I could think of. I layered fake fog effects that screamed low budget. I added cheap ghostly sounds. Random moans and creaks were patently unconvincing. It created obvious visual glitches, badly done video skips and distortions. I wanted anyone who saw it to immediately dismiss it. Amateur creepypasta. Then, with disgust, desperate hope that it would be the end, I sent the fake back to the client. His reply was as terse as before. Perfect. Destroy the original. That night, almost as if by dark magic, the promised $20,000 hit my bank account. For 2 long, agonizing years, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. I tried to bury it, to suppress it, to convince myself it was just a strange, profitable job, a bad dream I'd been paid to make. The unease lingered, a shadow beneath my ordinary life. That fragile, shaky balance shattered last Tuesday. It began as any other day, until a Google alert popped up. I'd forgotten I'd said it years ago in a moment of morbid curiosity. My chest tightened when I saw the headline. Man found dead inside abandoned Indiana hospital. I felt my blood chill. The article described the discovery. His name, the name that filled me with dread, was Thomas Henderson. 59 years old. And the place, Rome 314. The very same Rome. Witnesses said he'd been behaving erratically in the weeks before his death, often screaming about deer. Those words struck me like a blow, confirming the impossible. Then I saw his photo in the article, maybe a mugshot or an old driver's license. I froze. Every muscle locked. Recognized his eyes instantly. There was no mistaking it. Those were the same eyes. The same terrified human eyes I'd seen in the tier on the surveillance footage. The connection was undeniable. Horrific. Absolute. Panic. Absolute. Icy panic took me. My mind raced, and I tore through my apartment, frantically pulling out the old hard drive that contained the original, unedited footage. My only thought was to delete it forever, to erase its existence and sever any link to this encroaching horror. When I finally plugged it in the drive, it wasn't the massive 47-minute raw footage I expected. The files still bore the same ugly familiar name, Dymphna.raw.mp4. But when I clicked it, the properties showed a length of only 3 minutes. It wasn't the original. It was the fake. The version I'd edited. And then the full, terrible realization hit me like a physical blow. It was no longer just a copy. My fake had somehow, impossibly, supernaturally become the original. The line between reality and forgery had been eradicated. Hoarding had taken on a life of its own, insidious, self-propagating. Vain. Just last night, it happened again. This time the message wasn't an email. It wasn't even a message. It was a video file that appeared with no sender, no explanation. My blood froze before I even opened it. My fingers trembled as I tapped the icon. Surveillance footage filled my screen. Footage from cameras in my own building. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would burst. The timestamp was there, sharp and pitiless. 2:17 a.m. The same time as the hospital tape. And there she was. The nurse, standing right at my apartment door, in the familiar powder blue uniform, holding the clipboard like a death knell. Slowly and deliberately, she looked into the camera, her stare unwavering and knowing. Then she formed 2 words with her lips, words that sealed my fate, echoed the hospital footage. Procedure Leffen C. As the words left her mouth, the video glitched, the image warping into static and scrambled pixels. For a fraction of a second, the picture vanished into chaotic noise. When it snapped back in focus, my apartment door was wide open. A dark, gaping maw. Kearney beside her, The one she pushed in the footage, the one meant for me, it was empty. I was not on it. If you're still listening, if you've read this far, please, for your own sake, turn it off now. Do not share this with anyone. Do not comment. Don't even think about saving it. Whatever this thing is, it spreads through attention. It feeds on watching or interaction on being acknowledged. I sincerely believe that by deleting the originals, by trying to wipe them from existence, save myself and run from its grasp.
It didn't work.
I thought that putting physical distance between me and the source of the horror would keep me safe. It didn't. Because Procedure 11-C is not a medical operation in any way we understand. It's a transfer.
Cold.
Cunning transference of consciousness and identity. You watch the footage, you interact with it. Eventually, you become the next patient. It's a contagious curse passed on by the act of check your search history. Right now. Come on. Look, if you see the words St. Dymphna's 11C listed among your recent searches, understand something important. You didn't type them. She did. While you slept, utterly unaware, her influence spilled into your waking world. Listen closely, just for a moment. Do you hear that faint metallic squeal? That's not your neighbor fixing something. Hospital gurneys, those old, heavy things, with a very distinctive, nerve-squeaking squeak. A sound hard to forget once you've heard it. It's the sound that cuts like a cold blade under the skin. My name was on that list just yesterday. I suggest you check yours. I don't know how much time I have left, but if you're still here, if you watch this all the way through, then you already understand why I'm terrified. I want you to do something for me, right now. Go check your front door. Not because I think she's there, because I think you already heard something. Procedure 11C doesn't need a hospital. It doesn't need a nurse. It just needs someone to pay attention. And you've been paying attention this whole time. My name was on that list yesterday. I suggest you check yours.